So we are joined with Caitlin Cook, who is the head of growth at Moonwalk Fitness. Caitlin, welcome to Next Gen Vision.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Caitlin, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit how you got when you joined Moonwalk Fitness, and then just give us the basic intro into what Moonwalk Fitness does.
Sure. So I joined the Moonwalk team in June of this year. Moonwalk started towards the beginning of this year in around January or so. Um, I was a power user of Moonwalk before I ever joined the team. So just like super passionate about health and wellness, can get a little bit into what Moonwalk is as well. It's a fitness accountability app that uses the financial incentives that blockchain supports so well as social incentives to help users build daily healthy habits. The way that we're doing that right now is with step-based contests. So whether you're walking or running, we use steps as a proxy for overall activity in a day. And we want people to be moving their bodies for more minutes in a day than they maybe did previously, just health wise. It's one of the easiest changes that you can make to your routine. But implementing that is hard. How do you hold yourself accountable? So Moonwalk hosts contests, and really the way that it works is you join a game, the game lasts a certain number of days, and every day there's a minimum step requirement. If you hit your step goal every day, or backing up, sorry, you put an entry deposit in to enter the game. And this is where the fun part comes in. So that's either denominated in USDC, Bonk, or Solana. If you hit your step goal every day, like you say you're going to, you get your full deposit back at the end of the game. But if you don't, if you miss one day or several, then that proportion of your overall deposit goes to a prize pool, and that prize pool split by everyone who hits their goals. So rewarding consistency and trying to incentivize people to be healthy and active every single day, past a certain point, and just helping people sort of build that habit, because habit formation is really difficult at the start, and healthy competition and a little bit of money on the line definitely helps.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying there. It's about getting the habit going, so at least getting them started. Because I don't know if you've ever read the book Atomic Habits. It's like
Yes.
my favorite. I think most people have actually read this book. It's one of
So
my favorite
good.
books. Yeah, I mean they obviously say like getting into the habit is important, and then once it's a habit, you're most likely to stick to it. So I think that's cool also because people are very incentivized by money, whether that's the fear of losing money or the hope of gaining money. So it's a good like starting point to put. What sort of people would be interested in this? Like obviously you've got the people that are doing their fitness and are generally fit and do a lot of exercise, but who is the primary target for Moonwalk Fitness?
So I would put it into two different baskets based on what you just said. First, it would be people who are already active. Maybe you're walking every day, maybe you're running, and this is a way where, you could potentially earn prize money off of something that you're already doing without much effort other than signing up for games. But the second basket, which I think as we grow the app and have a mobile app that's non-crypto user friendly and kind of going towards what our end goal is, the focus is going to be people who want to live healthier. And this is a way to hold themselves accountable, because especially with health and wellness, and you mentioned Atomic Habits, I literally made a video about this the other day. You see all of these like different influencers online giving health advice, and it's always so overly complicated and overwhelming. And I think that's where a lot of people lose the plot, where they want to lose weight, they want to eat healthier, they want to work out, and they're trying to follow these super difficult itineraries every single day of what they need to do and what they can't do. And that usually results in not being consistent with it because it's too hard to maintain. Moonwalk games, like kind of back to Atomic Habits again, we want it to be easy, obvious, attractive in a variety of ways. Those are things that like James Clear pointed to as like the most important components of Atomic Habits. Like we know it's obvious that we should move our body more in a day. We know it's going to be good for us if we do. And it's something that's not that difficult. You don't need equipment. You can do it anywhere that you are. So getting started is a very light lift. We wanted these games designed super easily so that people who have been thinking for a long time, oh, I need to get healthier, use this as the pathway, and you create maybe a new community out of it. You're competing against people, you're making friends out of it, and you could potentially earn money too. So depending on what incentivizes you the most, there is an incentive in place for that. And I think we're going to get a lot of people who were scared of starting their health journeys on board with a game like Moonwalk.
Okay, cool. So if we simplify it a little bit, let's say I am with a group of friends. Okay, let's run the two scenarios. Scenario one, it's just me and I want to get involved. Then I would join some sort of general pool of people that all of us put money in. We set a certain target of however many steps a day, and then for a period of, let's say, a week, and then we track that over the week, and then those that stuck to it stand to get rewarded, and those who didn't stand to lose whatever their initial deposit was. Is that sort of capturing scenario one correctly?
Yeah, definitely. So you could come to Moonwalk totally on your own, moonwalk.fit. You sign up, you create your login. And once you're logged in, you can go to the Moonwalk public games page. We have dozens of games going every single week that anyone can join because we don't want you to need a group coming in to get started. So that public games page, if you have the money for the entry deposit, everything's fair game. You can join as many as you want at a time. And then kind of leading into the other side of that, which I figure is where you're going next, we also opened up the ability for users to create games. So say you don't necessarily want to compete against a lot of people you don't know. I want to compete against my friends or have a family competition or have a competition for an NFT community or a group of friends. You can do that super easily by setting one up in Moonwalk and it's private. You choose whatever the entry deposit amount is. So you could do as low as one USDC. You could do, we've seen games as high as 100 Sol for an entry deposit, which is pretty crazy. And then you choose the number of days and the step count per day. And that varies as well. So whether it's a public or private game, you kind of get your choice of do I want to push myself? Do I want to have something where it's like a maintenance amount of I want to be hitting at least 7,000 steps a day. So I join games that are, that's the minimum requirement. Um, you have the flexibility to kind of do whatever you want there. That 100 Sol entry game I mentioned, they did 30,000 steps a day, which is 15 miles. So a little bit out there. Wouldn't recommend that people try to do that and try to sustain that because it's not necessarily healthy, but you can really go across the board with what you want. And we've seen a lot of smaller groups, do really fun competitions that were really engaging and, made them come back for more. So it's really whatever you want to make of it.
Yeah, I think that's actually, I mean, the single people one is really cool also because then everyone can get involved. But I think a really fun gamified version of it is the group incentive because like I don't know, like, I'm just picturing maybe there's like a family and then the dad is like everyone's looking a bit chops here, so he creates the game and he's like, okay, whoever meets these targets gets this amount, and he could like put in all of the reward sort of pool for it, and then it just
Mhm.
incentivizes the whole family to be better. So I think it sounds like there's a great amount of flexibility in this.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of projects. So think about if you run, if you have a token and you have a token community or an NFT and you want to engage them, especially with like the NFT market right now, you want to find a way to like engage the community regardless of what's going on in the market. And I think Moonwalk is the perfect way to do that because it's pretty market agnostic, right? Like markets could be down, but you're putting money on the line, but it's not necessarily a gamble where you don't know if it's going to go to zero. You're fully in control of whether you get that money back and you have the opportunity to earn a little bit more as well. So the yield is coming from other players rather than the market, which has been interesting, just, depending on market conditions. And we've seen Moonwalk games continue regardless. What we've seen as well with those communities is a lot of them have been adding what we call a sponsor prize. So say I'm an NFT founder. I want to host a game for my NFT community. We even have NFT gated games with like Matrika Labs now. So you can verify that you have the NFT to join, you're in the game. And maybe I add 300 USDC if it's like a small group or something as a sponsor prize. If you hit your goals, not only do you split the prize pool made up of partial deposits from people who don't hit their goals, you also get this added pot that gets split amongst the winners as well. So that's something fun that we've seen. We've had a lot of projects in the crypto community that are adding, say, $1,000 sponsor prizes for games, and they're getting a couple hundred people in these games. Like very good exposure for the brand, a different activation, and everyone else is incentivized to get involved because they're competing for what I would say is like a little bit more prize money. So it's a bit of a win-win all around.
Yeah, I think that flexibility is great. So if we look at sort of like institutions that might want to get involved, so I have my Apple Watch. My insurance is Discovery Insurance, and I get like a free smoothie every week if I do like meet my goals. But that's obviously quite flexible with regard to like there's a whole bunch of sports on there as well, Pilates, all of that. Um, currently do you see it being more individuals that are using it, or are you in talks with any sort of industries that want to sort of start onboarding the technology?
So with where the product is right now, it's more for individuals in different like crypto-based communities. So you can log in with any sort of major crypto wallet. You can log in with Gmail via tip link. So where the product is right now is more specific to crypto native users. However, and we can talk about this a little bit more later, we're going towards fiat on-ramping and off-ramping logins with things that Web2 non crypto users are familiar with, like phone number, email, Apple, Gmail, whatever you really want it to be. So eventually, it's going to be more mainstream focused where we can get whether it's individuals or groups or businesses involved in contests. And what you just mentioned related to insurance is one that we haven't had specific conversations with anyone around, but it's super interesting to me because if you're an employer and you're paying for insurance, you're going to be paying more in like insurance claims if your employees are not healthy, right? So you want to incentivize them to be active. We've seen a lot of the research and the benefits of what happens to your body if you're more active every day and eating healthy and all of the things that go with that. You're probably going to have less insurance claims, which benefits the employer as well that's paying for that. So these employers, it would help them to have some sort of tracking mechanism for it, or to the sponsor prize conversation that we were talking about before. If I was running a business, it would be really cool to put a little bit of money towards a monthly contest where if you hit over an X amount of activity, you earn a prize, or maybe you don't have to, you have like a lowered insurance payment for that month or something like that. There's so many possibilities. So, corporation wise, I think there's a lot we could do. We're not having conversations on that right now. We're focused on just improving the UI UX so that normal non crypto people can use it and not feel intimidated.
Yeah, for sure. I do think, even now while you're talking, I'm thinking of all the possible scenarios in the future because fitness accountability is also great because one, you get the fitness aspect for health, and that generally adds dopamine and makes you happy, and like employers would want that. But I think there's also a big opportunity for creating communities around it. So, a company who hosts a game gets their people involved, right? So people start interacting with each other a little bit more. And now where everything is a little bit disconnected and people do feel a little bit lonely, I think the growth opportunity for this is massive. In terms, sorry, you there?
Yep.
Sorry, your screen just froze a bit. In terms of current users, where are we sitting at now?
Oh man. Last I checked, I mean, so we launched a points program for Moonwalk as well, where it's like, if you're joining games, if you're hitting your goals, if you are onboarding new users that actually sign up for a game, you're earning what we call experience points or XP. On that leaderboard right now, I would say, and I actually haven't checked it this week, but over 2,000 users right now. I mean, daily active is definitely, I would say, 300-400 minimum if I had to guess. It's been pretty interesting though because we've seen a very sticky user base for those who have onboarded and people who come back and join more games, which is obviously what you want to see. You want to see user retention, not just people who sign up, join one game, and don't come back. So, pretty happy with the growth on that specific to just crypto communities. And then, of course, we're expecting to see those numbers go way, way larger as we can onboard like friends and family. And like my mom is even asking about when she can use Moonwalk, but I'm not going to onboard her to like, oh, you need an SPL wallet and then you have to fund it. And then you have to join like in browser and then it'll bounce over to your Phantom app. And like, it's just too janky right now. But in terms of user, like early numbers for users and kind of the users that come back, I would say versus a lot of what's going on for crypto apps in general, the numbers are pretty strong.
Yeah, that's great. I do also agree with what you're saying. Every step that you add another step reduces the amount of people signing up by like half, right? So every time there's an
Yeah.
additional step, and especially when it comes to needing to have a crypto wallet, that's obviously going to cut out a lot of people. So, Caitlin, you're obviously a regular user of the app. Um, what do you like about it right now, and what sort of upgrades do you think it'll need in the future in order to get mass adoption and also just general improvements? Because obviously, crypto apps and just apps in general are quite an iterative process. So you start with something, you make little improvements. So what are the good things you like about it now, and what improvements do you think it'll need through time?
Yeah, so a lot of improvements I'm excited to talk about too because that's kind of what we're in the thick of right now, but what I like about Moonwalk just kind of baseline where we started and where it is right now is just how simple it is, like how simple of a concept it is contest-wise. Hit your goal, get your money back, miss on your goal, lose a bit of your money. It's very simple for anyone to understand coming in, which I think is great, right? You don't want people to be confused going in and be confused when it's happening and not really sure what to do next. So the game itself is very simple. We've seen other fitness related crypto projects like Step In and others in the past where, they've definitely had a lot of users at different periods of time, but if you look back at what's required to get started and keep going, it's so confusing. So I think we've really made an effort to strip it back in terms of the game mechanics where anyone can understand it. And that's like probably my favorite thing. In terms of where we're going, I mean, think about any app that's hit the mainstream, whether it's fitness or not. Think about Duolingo or anything like that. You need the dopamine hits. You need a mobile app where the entire experience is in one place and it's very easy. People need a nudge, right? So think about having streaks in Duolingo. Like you might not, like no one's ever thinking about your product as much as you are. So you need to find fun and creative ways to like nudge your players into or users into coming back to the app, regardless of what they're doing. So for Moonwalk, I think the mobile app is going to be the biggest unlock for us. Again, I mentioned we're going to have fiat on ramping where you can use your credit cards or Apple Pay to pay for credits to join games. We're going to have logins that are super easy, like phone number and email, rather than needing a specific wallet. Those are going to be huge unlocks. But also, just in terms of the experience, you mentioned groups, right? And the social component of it is going to be so big. I think in person events, which is something that's a little bit outside of the app, is going to go a long way. But I also think that adding social components to the app itself is going to be big, right? Like, say I'm a fitness influencer and I want to host step contests with Moonwalk because I've built up this big audience and I don't really know how to engage them other than trying to shill them products. How do I get them involved in something that's health related? So if I'm an influencer and I'm trying to host a Moonwalk game for my community, I want to have a group in the app. I want to be able to engage with them. I want to be able to have those players send updates to each other. I want people to be able to gas each other up and get excited about it during the game. That's going to be huge. And that's something that like I'm specifically thinking a lot about from a product perspective of how do we add social components to this? Because any app these days has some sort of social part to it, whether it's DMs, whether it's replies or comments, like it's just something that's needed. And I think that that really adds a lot of fun to it. And then the other part, which we've talked about a lot in different interviews and whatnot, is moving beyond just step contests. Right now, we have one type of activity and one type of game. We want to have different game types for different types of people. Maybe you're more competitive. Maybe you want to do a solo mode, whatever the case may be. We want different game types for different users, just to, for a variety of preferences. And then we want to have different activities. So, in the same way that Strava has a way to track all of the different activities you're doing, whether it's running, biking, rowing, swimming, we want to have contests for those activities as well, where we add a financial component to it rather than just posting about the activity that you did, and having contests around them. That's going to be a big unlock as well, where we've had a lot of people in our community requesting it, but we're trying to go one step at a time and focus on creating a really good user experience for the product we have now, and then expanding into other activities, like one step at a time.
Yeah, that makes sense. In terms of the like other sort of exercisey things, I do a lot of like sport things, but not a lot of walking, weirdly enough. Also in South Africa, oddly, like everyone has a car, so we don't really like walk like in different first world countries where you use like public transport, between your
Right.
house and the train station is like a 15-20 minute walk. And then from wherever, you walk a lot in a day. Here we don't walk much, actually. Like so I do think that a big thing in onboarding other people would be different game modes. So whether that be rowing, cycling, whatever it is. In terms of the team behind Moonwalk Fitness, how big is it? And then also, I don't know if you've ever gone to like a gym like supplement store, and then the person behind the counter is like someone who looks like he's never been to gym in his life. And like I know what protein powder I'm buying, but I don't really want to buy it here because I want to buy it from a person who gyms,
Right.
right? So like objectively speaking, would you say that the team behind Moonwalk Fitness is quite enthusiastic about fitness themselves, or is it like they sort of saw a gap in the market and they're creating this product, but they themselves are not really the biggest believers in the product?
Oh no, I we drink the Kool-Aid for sure. Like everyone on the team is incredibly active. Even like we have three co-founders for Moonwalk. It's actually a lot of the contributors responsible for Bonk as well. So people who've
Okay.
been in the Solana ecosystem and in crypto for a very long time and have run successful projects. So I think that's something worth noting. But on the fitness side, Moonwalk was actually born out of one of our co-founders, KW, in the midst of the bear market. He and a lot of his friends ended up thinking, instead of falling into the typical down bad during the bear market unhealthy habits, drinking, all of these other different things that you can do as sort of vices when you're not feeling so great and markets are looking pretty bad, they thought, how can we do something positive for ourselves to really like not fall into that habit again? So what they did was put up crypto punks on the line and did a contest for who could drop their body fat percentage the most. And it ended up changing KW's life. He lost a ton of weight, like a totally different person, incredibly health oriented now. And really, after that whole experience and the positive results of every single person involved, he just thought, how can I bring what just happened to as many people as possible? And that's kind of where the idea was born out of. Again, coming from people in the Solana ecosystem as well, but our entire team is incredibly active too. Like I was a Division 1 athlete. Our product guy was also like a very, very talented athlete, still super active. Even our CTO, who is one of the three founders, which typically devs don't move as much,
Yeah.
incredibly active. So our
No.
team in general, it's not a situation where, they just opportunistically saw a gap and just thought, let me build it, but not actually, preach or like live, walk the walk and talk the talk, I guess. Like
Mhm.
we are living it every single day. And I'd also say it's kind of motivating to do that as well, right? If you're building something, you want to be passionate about it, and it makes you want to go so much harder and in depth on what you're doing and onboarding people to it. And you can sense the enthusiasm, and like you can hear it the way I'm talking right now. Probably I end up going accidentally on rants about Moonwalk because for several years on Twitter, before I was ever working on this project, I posted every single day with the hashtag get outside and was going on a walk every single day for months. And it's something that, the people who had been following me started doing. And it started like a very positive chain effect of people going outside, being more active, posting about it, holding each other accountable in a little bit of a different way. And just spreading that to as many people as possible has always been the mission. So it's cool to work with a team that also believes in that, because it would be way harder to work on something if you're not fully believing in what you're building.
Yeah, if you're passionate about it, then you'll be obsessed with it. If you're obsessed with it, then it'll become great. Like I believe those three. Discipline also works along the lines, but definitely passion starts.
Exactly.
And then, and okay, why did you guys decide to build on Solana? Is it just because it's the founding team from Bonk and they quite like the Solana ecosystem, or what's the reasoning behind that?
I mean, our team does come from the Solana ecosystem, other than, part of our dev team is like Web2 app developers out of San Francisco. So like people who are very in depth on like the mobile experience and Web2 consumer apps, which is obviously something that we need. But when it comes to Solana, and obviously bias, I've been in the ecosystem for a while, but I would argue that there is no better chain in terms of speed, in terms of cost to build a consumer app to scale. You need the low fees, you need the very, very fast like settlement and transactions. You need all of that there, but also the Solana community in terms of the developers that are there and just the ecosystem as a whole. And like we have to integrate with a lot of different projects, whether it's like wallet provider or wallet integration like solutions and things like that. I don't think there's a better place than Solana. Like just in terms of the creativity and the focus on consumer and building solutions that can actually scale to a mass audience. Those are baseline requirements, and I don't know if you can really find them elsewhere. So it made a lot of sense. Team was already very deep in the ecosystem, which never hurts, but it wouldn't have made sense to go anywhere else for what we're trying to do. Because if you're trying to scale to as many users as possible, you need to start with speed and low fees. So people will argue that there are other places that you can go do that. I think Solana is going to be like the home of consumer apps on chain. And we were already there. So it definitely helps. I don't think it would make sense to go anywhere else. And also, like, we've had a lot of questions about would you ever go cross chain? It doesn't make sense to go cross chain because what we're going for as a product, users are not even going to have to care that the product itself is on chain, let alone what chain it's on. So that's not really the direction that we're going with it either. We like started in a strong spot and we're just going to build a UI UX where the user doesn't even have to worry about the back end.
Yeah, I think that's the general consensus about mass adoption is everyone is asking, okay, will it be cross-chain? And I think most things are at some point going to, like, which chain it lives on is going to be indifferent because the user will never see that part. Um,
Mhm.
they'll just interact with the user interface and that's it. They don't care. Um, so competitors in the space, which are the major ones, or is there any specific reason why Moonwalk Fitness is specifically unique that you don't see yourselves having any other competitors?
I mean, competitor, people use that very broadly, right? So if you look at Moonwalk and you see like a one liner on what it is, the first question that we always get is, oh, so it's just another step in. If like, so starting with that as the first competitor that people think of, I wouldn't even necessarily consider it a competitor. Honestly, the only similarities are that it's built on Solana and that it's step based. If you look at the product itself, you go into step in, you need an NFT to join. That NFT has a varying degree of rarity. You can earn tokens that are like specific to the step in platform. And whatever shoe that you have, you can either run with it or walk or do both. And it limits how much you can earn in that token in a given day, depending on the NFT you have. You can trade the NFT. That's not mainstream friendly. It's also play to earn rather than PvP, which is what Moonwalk is. So for Moonwalk games, the yield is coming from other players. The tokens used are tokens that are very deeply rooted on chain and not specific to the platform itself. Again, USDC, Solana, Bonk, you can take those tokens, use them elsewhere. It's something that is not beholden just to the platform itself. That was done very specifically. And like you're competing against other people, right? There's like the social component to it. It's very simple. Step in definitely more catering to a crypto specific crowd. The UI UX is definitely a lot different in terms of the requirements, and I would say more for a crypto native audience. And again, just very different game mechanics. But that is the one that we get the most. Is oh, so you're just the same as Step in, but anyone who has ever used both would be able to tell you that they are not even remotely similar other than the fact that they're trying to promote more movement in a day, which I'm fully in favor of. Steppen had a crazy number of users at one point as well. So, like, kudos to that. Obviously, there was like a product market fit there at the time, but we went a very different direction with it, game mechanics wise. And then non crypto, I mean, the biggest app that people use outside of crypto for fitness, I would say, is Strava. And even that is like totally different as well. There's not really like a gamification component to it. It's more so tracking the workouts that you did, having that backlog of it. It's you can add the social part to it where you're like sharing with people where your route was and what you did. But that's really the extent. We took a very different approach in terms of giving people the ability to earn money off of it, people the ability to compete against others directly, and kind of have that fun leaderboard competitive game structure rather than having it just be something that you post to. Which I think is a lot more engaging personally and will probably cater to a different group of people, right? So maybe you just want to have something to track your workouts on your own, or you're someone that wants to compete against others and have that bit of competitive edge. I think it goes towards a little bit of different crowds, but those are the two largest fitness apps I would say, both crypto and like Web2 native, that come to mind.
Yeah, so based on what you're saying, what I do like is the intention behind Moonwalk Fitness does seem to be to build community, whether that be in individual group games where people play with each other, like, or like where you can join a massive sort of onboard game for individuals. The core being building the community is the key component. So we're coming now at the end. I don't know if were you also in Korea for KBW?
I was.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I was, yeah. So we met at Solana Breakpoint though. That was in Singapore. So now there was Korea Blockchain Week, which is a week of crypto events in South Korea. Then we had Token 2049, which is in Singapore, also massive. Then we had Solana Breakpoint. Solana Breakpoint actually super impressive. I always like considered Solana just a place where people do meme coins, but the Solana Breakpoint was actually like one of my favorite events that I've been to
They do
ever.
such
Like
a great
really,
job.
and it honestly felt sincere. Like people seemed to care. You know, it wasn't just like checking things. Like people really seemed to care about the ecosystem and like growth and stuff. And they have such a unique approach to how they did their event, which is kind of cool. Um, what are your sort of not specific to Moonwalk Fitness, but in the general crypto space? What are your take backs after all of these events?
I have been super happy, and I again biased on like what I'm working on with Moonwalk, but I felt this way before I ever joined. I am so happy to see specifically at Breakpoint, which to your point, they do such a phenomenal job with event planning for Solana events in general. I know the events team very well. They are the best in the business and have set the bar so incredibly high, done super intentionally, all of that. But in terms of the programming and the people that I talked to, the presentations I saw, the two things I was happiest about, one, a massive focus on consumer, because again, I truly believe Solana is the best place for that. If you're looking on Twitter, you see meme coins, right? But the teams that are building on Solana that probably aren't the loud ones that you're seeing online are very focused on actually securing mainstream adoption and what that looks like realistically, whether that's us or other teams. And the other part of that, which I think plays into mainstream adoption, is a huge focus on mobile. So, mobile native apps, mobile compatible, very mobile friendly. Everyone walks around with a phone in their hands at all times. You should not need to go onto your desktop to use a crypto app. And that's going to limit the number of users. It's going to limit how active they are in what you've built. It needs to be mobile first. And I've talked to a ton of teams and saw a lot of presentations where that was a big focus of where they're going with their product. So, super excited about that as well, because I think that's like what's going to be ultimately necessary for us to grow outside of the group we have now. And then I guess I'd also add, just in terms of payments, like wallet solutions and fiat on ramp, off ramp, like that is really going to be, it's not the sexiest thing, right? But that is going to be what bridges people over. People that aren't already in the space don't owe us anything, right? So we need to make it as easy as possible for them to engage with what we've built and build products that are worth using. So having kind of the payment solutions part, I've seen a lot of projects focusing on that, making it way easier to get involved. And then also just anything stablecoin related too, in terms of bridging the gap. Like these are things that we are going to need and ultimately focus on that maybe don't get the good press and publicity that they should, because it's not, going up 100x or something like a meme coin. But I think it's the stuff that in the long run is most valuable.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think the crypto space is developing now where uh, the promise of what it can be is not sufficient anymore. You need to start actually adding value, and you need to actually start getting mass adoption. Um, it's not cool to just say, you know, blockchain technology, decentralization. Those keywords are not are not quite cutting it. I think that's also why in this run the institutional investors hasn't haven't come in as much as everyone expected. I mean, it's been a bull market, but pretty bear market for a bull market.
The vibes have been bear market. Like it's the
Yeah,
energy's
yeah,
it's been kind of a weird space, honestly, for the last like couple of months. Like there's so many good things going and a lot of positive developments to focus on, but it still feels like we're in a bear market.
yeah. I definitely would call this bear market. However, bear markets are great because that's when the real development happens. Like when it
Exactly.
gets into the bull market, then people are more focused on looking on how their wallets are doing as opposed to actually like building things of value.
Agree.
Caitlin, is there anything else that you want to mention that you think is important that hasn't been covered yet? I'll obviously leave a link to Moonwalk Fitness and basic guide and getting involved. But is there anything specific you want to mention to our viewers?
I think I got everything for the most part, but honestly, I mentioned the mobile app and everything that we're working on. That's coming up very, very soon. Not like a oh soon TM and it's like in a year from now. Really big strides being made on the back end and test flight and getting this mobile app up and running. And if you are someone that's interested in health and wellness at all, whether it's for yourself or, you have a community in person or otherwise that you want to onboard with this, the time is coming very soon and no one's going to need to be crypto native to get started. So I'm super excited for the growth that we're going to see there. I'm excited for the opportunity to onboard new people on chain and just get people healthier in the process. So that's the last thing that I would say. And then, if you haven't gotten started with it, definitely encourage you to sign up, give feedback to the team, get involved. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Do you have a rough timeline for that? For the
I
release of the mobile app?
can't be the non-technical person that gives the deadlines that the devs have not.
But
I
are we
would
thinking like
next month or
Q1 of
so
next year?
within the next month or so, you're going to see a lot of really big updates from our team. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Okay, cool. I'll follow up. I'll follow the X. Cool. Thank you so much for coming on Next One Vision then.
Yeah, thanks for having me.